In a remote region of Europe, hidden among hills and ancient secrets lies Moldova, one of the least visited countries on the planet, where some of the most beautiful women in Europe seek out Latin men and tourists to marry, and where life is cheaper than almost anywhere else on Earth. This fascinating country is full of mysteries and curiosities that make those who discover them want to move there instantly. So get ready to discover the reality hidden in unknown Moldova in this new video from Uncensored World. You will be surprised to learn that in this remote nation, there is a real phenomenon known as the international marriage market, where Moldovan women seek love outside their borders. It is a kind of exchange in which the supply consists of beautiful young women interested in building a better life, while the demand is made up of foreign men looking for the partner of their dreams. A European country full of hard-to-believe oddities, such as hiding one of the world's largest wine cellars with hundreds of kilometers of underground tunnels filled with bottles, containing another country within itself, a secret network of monasteries, and even one of the most coveted passports on Earth. A nation where the charms go beyond nature, with homes where guests sometimes shared rooms and even beds, ancient rituals with spells to attract love or improve intimate relationships, or being considered one of the 10 cheapest destinations in the world. Pay attention. And don't miss this video, because discovering Moldova with us will surprise you more than you can imagine. Let's get started. In a hidden and magical corner among rolling hills and green valleys that seem to hide ancient secrets, lies Moldova, a nation unknown to most, but full of charms, curiosities, and mysteries that seem straight out of a fantasy tale. In this country, beauty is found in the warmth of its people, in ancient monasteries and wineries hidden in the rock, and in a natural environment that seems protected from the passage of time. As you will discover, Moldova is a hidden treasure, waiting to be discovered by those seeking authentic and surprising experiences. Moldova is known for being the poorest and least visited country in Europe, a place where daily life passes at a leisurely pace, and the prices of things surprise those who arrive here for the first time. Moldova is therefore one of the cheapest countries in the world, a destination also full of women with unique features and beauty, reflecting centuries of history, cultural mixtures, and traditions that still endure, many of whom are looking for boyfriends or husbands abroad, as you will soon discover in more detail. Located in Eastern Europe, Moldova borders Ukraine to the north and east, and Romania to the south and west. This strategic position has made it a cultural and historical crossroads, with influences from Europe, Russia, and Mediterranean cultures, as well as a scene of tensions and political changes that have marked its recent history. With a relatively low population density and tourism still expanding, much of its land remains untouched, allowing visitors to discover extensive forests, crystal-clear rivers, fertile valleys, and underground or hidden places in the rocks that hold ancient secrets. Among these ancient secrets, one of the most striking are the huge underground cellars that stretch for hundreds of kilometers beneath the country's surface. These galleries are so vast that it is necessary to travel through them by car. They were originally excavated during the Soviet era and later expanded over the centuries to preserve one of the country's most precious treasures: wine. Few people know that Moldova is one of the world's largest wine producers, with more than 3/4 of its exports coming from this wine industry. More than 10% of the country's total area is dedicated to it. A historical relationship with wine that dates back more than 5,000 years, making it one of the countries with the longest winemaking tradition in Europe. Every winery, every tunnel, and every barrel holds a piece of this history, preserving both local varieties and ancestral production techniques that have been passed down from generation to generation. Among the most famous is Mici, renowned for housing the world's largest wine collection, with millions of bottles carefully stored in its ancient vaults, stretching over more than 200 kilometers. The history of Mici begins in an old limestone mine, where the extraction of the material unintentionally created a perfect environment for the preservation and maturation of wine. It was in 1969 when the state-owned company State Enterprise Quality Wines Industrial Complex, Milesti Mici, decided to take advantage of these underground tunnels, organizing and storing wine in a systematic manner. Over the years, the cellar expanded, incorporating new galleries and organizing each section by type of wine and date of production. The barrels and bottles were lined up in tunnels that extended further and further, and soon it became a veritable underground labyrinth, with streets named after grape varieties and traditional Moldovan celebrations. In this way, what began as a state project to preserve and promote Moldovan wine production quickly became a unique cellar in the world, or rather, the underground wine capital. Thus, in 2005, Milesti Mici was officially recognized by Guinness World Records as the largest wine cellar in the world, with more than 200 kilometers of galleries and nearly 2 million bottles in storage. Today, this wine cellar remains a unique destination that combines history, culture, and a passion for wine, showing how a state initiative was transformed into a true global treasure. Visitors can explore its hundreds of kilometers of tunnels and admire labels dating back decades, all in an environment where the temperature and humidity are naturally constant, ideal for preservation. This reality makes Moldova an unmissable destination for wine lovers, curious travelers, and those seeking to discover secrets hidden underground. But in addition to these underground cellars, Moldova holds other secrets, a network of hidden monasteries, many of them carved out of rock or hidden in remote hills and valleys. These buildings are not only considered architectural gems, but were also spiritual and strategic refuges during times of conflict, invasion, and war throughout the centuries. Few know the origins and mysteries that these monasteries hide, and now we are going to discover them. The origins of these buildings date back to the Middle Ages, and they were built by Orthodox communities seeking to maintain their faith in times of threat. As a result, hundreds of Moldovan monks and believers began to build these enclosures in almost inaccessible places, far from the main roads and surrounded by forests or cliffs. This was similar to the construction of the Meteora monasteries in Greece, where monks climbed cliffs to create their sanctuaries. Little by little, this need for privacy, faith, and contemplation led to a search in Moldova for locations that combined natural protection and spiritual isolation. These places not only served as centers of prayer, but also as safe deposits for manuscripts, icons, and religious relics, thus preserving Moldova's cultural identity and ancient mysteries from possible invasions. Many monasteries had secret passages and internal tunnels that allowed them to move around unseen, protect treasures, and monitor their surroundings. In some areas, rudimentary pulley and crane systems were built to move stones and materials from the hillsides, demonstrating the creativity and ingenuity of those who built these complexes in virtually inaccessible locations. Over the centuries, these monasteries continued to function as refuges during more recent conflicts, even during the Soviet period, when religious practice was restricted. Today, walking through their corridors, discovering their cells, and contemplating the chapels carved into the rock is like traveling to the heart of Moldova's history. One of the best-known examples is the Orhail-Veci Monastery, carved into the rock on the banks of the Rut River. In Orhail-Veci, the cells and chapels are carved into the stone and accessed via narrow staircases and steep paths, which for centuries made any attack difficult. Discovering these monasteries helps us understand that Moldova holds mysteries that combine history, spirituality, and survival, waiting for those who dare to explore them. Thinking about survival, the current reality of this country, its poverty, lack of tourism, and needs, are behind a very controversial movement known as Moldovan international marriage markets. In this country, life is marked by economic and social challenges that make the reality of its inhabitants very different from that of many countries in the world. Poverty, deindustrialization, and the mass emigration of young people in search of better opportunities have made this country one of the poorest in Europe, but also a place that, as you will see, arouses fascination for those seeking authentic and different experiences. Moldova is the least visited country in Europe, a territory where tourists are always scarce. In 2024, approximately 67,600 international tourists visited the country, representing a 55% increase over the previous year. To put this into perspective, every day more visitors arrive in Rome, the capital of Italy, than all the international tourists Moldova receives in a whole year, a reality that reflects the unknown and exclusive nature of this country, and places Moldova among the most peaceful and authentic destinations on the continent. Despite being the least visited country in Europe, something that greatly attracts the attention of those who discover it is that Moldova has one of the most coveted passports in the world. The Moldovan passport allows its holders visa-free access to more than 120 countries around the world, giving its citizens remarkable freedom of international movement and making it a powerful tool for those seeking global opportunities. Much of this has to do with the fact that Moldova is considered the poorest country in Europe, a reality that is reflected in its limited infrastructure and roads, shortage of hotels, and reduced public transportation. These conditions make it difficult for tourists to access the country and explain why it remains an almost unknown destination despite its cultural and natural wealth. Despite this, it is possible to enjoy this country to the fullest. And at the end of the video, we will help you understand how to do so in the best way. Moldova's gross domestic product per capita has been the lowest on the continent for many years, as much of its population depends on agriculture and has low incomes and limited economic opportunities. Deindustrialization and the mass emigration of young people in search of better opportunities have exacerbated these difficulties, leaving the country with uneven development between urban and rural areas. These economic difficulties have led to a very particular phenomenon. There are more Moldovans living outside the country than inside it. The main emigration routes take them to Russia, Italy, Romania, and to a lesser extent to Western European countries such as Spain, Germany, and France. This mass emigration affects both the demographic structure and the labor market. Many talented young people leave their hometowns and villages behind, creating an imbalance between the urban and rural populations and limiting internal economic growth. This reality partly explains why Moldova remains one of the poorest countries on the continent, despite its cultural and natural wealth. At the same time, this reality has led to villages without young people, filled with elderly people, and even more so to a need like nowhere else for connections with the outside world, as many families who remain in Moldova depend on aid from their relatives abroad, while many women and men seek marriage and work opportunities outside the country, giving rise to a phenomenon that we will soon discuss in detail. Added to these factors are recent events that have affected the economy: political tensions, financial crises, high inflation, and the proximity of regional conflicts, such as the situation in Transnistria, a separatist region that generates instability, a country within the country of Moldova, which contributes to Moldova continuing to maintain very low prices for visitors, but also limits its ability to attract and sustain mass tourism. This reality, that of a country within a country called Transnistria, officially known as the Moldovan Republic of Dniester, is quite striking. Before going into detail about this strange nation, we would like to ask you to give us a like and subscribe to Uncensored World. As you can see, here you can discover the world like nowhere else. Thank you for being here. Although Transnistria is not recognized by any state, it maintains its own institutions, army, passports, and even its own currency, the Transnistrian ruble, which has no value outside its borders. Its capital, Tiraspol, seems frozen in time and is full of Soviet monuments, portraits of Lenin, and red flags that evoke nostalgia for the communist era. It is as if a piece of the Soviet Union had been trapped in the 21st century, offering visitors an unexpected journey into the past. Among the most striking curiosities, Transnistria was the first place in the world to issue plastic banknotes, an attempt at modernization that contrasts with its intact Soviet aesthetic. A reality that is reflected in other aspects of Moldova is its local currency, the Moldovan leu, and especially its Moldovan cents, whose value is so low that they are often hardly used. For example, 1 Moldovan cent is equivalent to approximately 1/100th of a US cent, which means that many small transactions are rounded up and reflects the country's low cost of living. This monetary peculiarity also contributes to Moldova being considered one of the cheapest destinations in the world, ideal for travelers seeking authentic experiences without spending a lot of money. If you visit Moldova, you will discover how prices for everything from accommodation to food and transportation can be laughable for those coming from Western Europe or Latin America, a reality that we will discuss in detail at the end of the video, which makes Moldova an ideal destination for backpackers and travelers looking to stretch every leu, local currency, to the maximum. But beyond its beauty, culture, and prices, Moldova attracts for another, much more human reason. It's women and the need many of them have to change their reality, sometimes seeking love in foreign arms. Moldovan women are known for their natural beauty and unique features, a beauty that is the result of centuries of cultural mixing, with Slavic, Balkan, and Latin influences. As a result, their harmonious features, light blue or green eyes and blonde or brown hair, reflect the historical diversity of this region. Moldovan women take care of their style and appearance. In cities, elegance and attention to detail are evident, while in rural areas more practical styles, adapted to everyday life, predominate. In addition, Moldovan women are recognized for their intellectual and professional dedication. Many seek advanced education and careers in medicine, economics, or science, despite economic limitations. Emotionally, they are considered passionate, warm, and devoted to their families. For them, the institution of marriage remains central, and family is a priority in their lives. The average age for marriage in Moldova is around 25 to 27 for women, and 28 to 30 for men. In smaller towns, marriages tend to take place at a younger age than in the capital, Chisinau, where studies and work postpone the wedding. Traditional rites are still very much alive, including Orthodox religious ceremonies and celebrations that can last several days with music, dancing, and banquets. One of the best known and most controversial traditions is the bride kidnapping, where friends of the groom symbolically kidnap the bride, and the groom must pay a festive ransom. Today, this ritual is performed mainly for entertainment purposes, reflecting the blend of tradition and community celebration in married life. However, in its origins, this custom was not so playful. Historically, the bride kidnapping was more akin to an actual abduction, a practice that dates back to times when marriage rules were much more flexible and sometimes dangerous, to the point that the abduction could be real. Over time, the tradition evolved into a festive and consensual ritual, where the negotiation of the ransom became an opportunity for fun, music, dancing, and community participation, leaving behind the coercive aspects of its origin. Over time, the realities of the country, as well as high emigration, have transformed the dynamics of most Moldovan marriages. Many couples live apart, and in this context, a very particular phenomenon has emerged: marriage markets, a term that describes the growing interaction between Moldovan women and foreign men in search of a partner. It is estimated that around 1 in 10 marriages of Moldovan women is to a foreign man, mainly from Italy, Romania, Russia, Ukraine, and more recently, Spain. This phenomenon is known as the international marriage market because, figuratively speaking, it functions as a meeting place where supply and demand for partners come together. Moldovan women seeking economic stability, security, and opportunities outside the country, and foreign men interested in marrying Moldovan women. This is not a literal trade, but rather a structured social and cultural exchange, where marriage agencies, online portals, and local events facilitate contacts, turning the search for a partner into a systematized process. The term market reflects this dynamic, as there is a significant supply of young, beautiful women who are educated and interested in building a life abroad, and a concrete demand from foreign men, usually from wealthier European countries, who are willing to marry. In this way, Moldova has become a territory where marriage migration not only responds to sentimental reasons, but even more so to economic and social realities in the country's present. At this point, we would like to ask you, what do you think of this international marriage market? Would you like to marry a Moldovan woman or man or enter the market? Pause the video and leave us your comment. It will be great fun to read it, and you know that doing so is the best way to help Uncensored World continue working every week to bring you interesting content like this, so thank you. One of the most striking curiosities of this phenomenon is that, in some cases, Moldovan women carefully plan the country they will emigrate to based on economic level, culture, and the possibility of family stability. For example, many prefer men from Italy or Spain because of their income and lifestyle, while others opt for nearby countries such as Romania or Ukraine because of their cultural and linguistic proximity. In addition, it is estimated that about 1 in 10 marriages of Moldovan women is to a foreign man, making Moldova one of the few countries in Europe where marriage migration is such a visible and accepted phenomenon. This female emigration also reflects the need to broaden horizons. Many women, rather than seeking love, seek job and educational opportunities outside the country, while maintaining a connection to their cultural roots. For many of them, the search for a partner is not limited to material considerations, which is why Moldova still has rituals of love and attraction known as descantatoare, a word that comes from the Romanian verb a descanta, which literally means to disenchant, or to reverse a spell. These traditional spells, documented in Moldovan folklore, were historically performed by rural healers to attract love, strengthen relationships, or even increase male potency. The fascinating thing about descantatoare is that they combine spiritual, symbolic, and natural elements. Herbs, candles, chants, and specific gestures are used which, according to tradition, concentrate the energy of attraction or protection on the desired person. Although they are practiced to a lesser extent today, many Moldovan women still resort to them as part of their love life and culture, keeping alive a tradition that blends mysticism, folklore, and the search for emotional connection. A striking curiosity is that even in modern cities, some women seek the help of these healers before starting a relationship or even before traveling abroad in search of a husband, demonstrating how an ancestral ritual continues to influence the dynamics of international marriages in Moldova. In addition to all this, Moldovan society is so fascinating that hospitality, especially in remote villages, can reach surprising limits. In some villages, small houses often share rooms, and in some cases even beds with guests. This practice, known locally as ospitalitate moldovanească, reflects a concept of extreme hospitality that still persists in certain remote areas, where a lack of space and resources does not prevent families from welcoming visitors. In some corners of this country, guests are not only welcome, but sometimes literally integrated into the daily life of the home, sharing spaces and experiences with the host family. If you've made it this far, you're probably interested in finding out how to get there and make the most of this fascinating country and its surprising customs. That's why we at Uncensored World have done our research and brought you the most complete and useful information to make your experience in Moldova unforgettable. Getting to Moldova from the Americas usually involves a flight to Chisinau, its capital, with connections from major European airports such as Rome, Madrid, or Paris. From Europe, there are direct flights from major cities such as Berlin, Milan, or Moscow, making the country more accessible than many people think. Citizens of many countries, including those of the European Union and the United States, can enter this country without a visa for short stays, making it even easier to plan a trip to this hidden gem of Eastern Europe. Once in Moldova, there are several ways to get around the country, but the most efficient and comfortable is by renting a car. Furthermore, as it is one of the cheapest countries on the planet, car rental in Moldova rarely exceeds $30 per day, depending on the type of vehicle and the season. This allows you to explore both the cities and the valleys and underground wine cellars without depending on public transport schedules. although buses and trains are also economical options for those seeking a more traditional trip. Moldova is considered one of the 10 cheapest destinations in the world, making it an ideal place for backpackers and travelers on a budget. This economic advantage allows you to enjoy unique experiences without spending a lot of money, compared to much better-known tourist destinations. To put it in perspective, a night in a mid-range hotel in Chisinau can cost approximately $15, while in cities such as Paris or Rome, the same service easily exceeds $150. A dinner for two in a typical Moldovan restaurant costs around $10, including local dishes and drinks, while a local beer usually costs less than $1. Figures that allow you to enjoy the cuisine and social life without compromising your budget. In addition to all this, Moldova is considered one of the safest countries in Europe and the world for travelers, with low rates of violent crime compared to many tourist destinations. But as anywhere, it is always advisable to exercise caution in areas with little traffic at night, and to take care of your personal belongings, especially in urban areas, although serious incidents are really rare. At Uncensored World, we hope you found this video as interesting as we did, and that it helped you discover Moldova, one of the most unknown and fascinating gems on the planet. If so, don't hesitate to leave us a like and a comment. It's the best way to help us continue working to bring you interesting content like this every week. Or like this video you can now watch to discover another of the most mysterious and beautiful places on the planet. Click on it. You're going to enjoy it.